All right, so I'm going to talk about my first side for how we're going to talk about different glazes for these cubes. As you can see, I've already dipped this top part into one of the glazes, and that's basically just to save a little bit of time. Hopefully it's obvious to how to just dip that first one into glaze. You can see I got a little bit on the edges, but that's okay. That'll be really easy to clean up here in a couple of steps. If you have any questions about how to dip that first side, I'd be more than happy to help you with that. So don't, if you're unsure, please feel free to ask. So before I get into this, so this is the first side. We're using 2 glazes and a material called wax to create a wax separation to create our pattern of what we're going to do for this side. Again, all those requirements for the different sizes and what we can and can't do are listed on the project sheet on Blackboard. So we're going to use wax. And so over behind the glazes, there's a bunch of little containers like this that say wax. Here in a few minutes, they should have a better label. But there's also a big jug of it as well. But it's best that we keep it in these smaller containers because wax is one of those materials that will ruin just about everything if we're not careful. So it's important to think about how we use it and use it carefully. It's basically just kind of like any kind of wax you would use. So as far as that goes, it's safe. But what it does to the ceramic material is what can ruin it or make it harder to work with. So we talked the other day about how glaze sticks to our bisqueware because there is the bisqueware is absorbing the moisture of the glaze, and then the glaze gets left on the outside. So what wax does is it actually makes the layer of clay, or in this case layer of glaze, impermeable by water so that the glaze won't stick to that area. And when I go to put glaze on the second time of this side, that'll make a little bit more sense. So what that means with wax though is it's going to be really good for decoration. If I put it anywhere that I don't want it, it's going to really slow things down because I basically have to re-bisque fire the piece to burn that wax off. So you want to be really careful that your hands are clean of wax. You want to be really careful to use a really clean brush. And then I'm just going to put wax where I want it and then go ahead and clean everything up. And the wax needs about an hour or so to really fully dry, just to be safe. So I've got a brush, and again, like I mentioned, cleaning up the brush is really important. And with wax, what I like to do is first, after I got a little bit wet, I worked a little bit of soap into the brush, and that'll help make it a little bit easier to clean. So I'm going to go ahead and get this started, but before I do that, I'm going to make a little sketch of my decoration on this glaze so that I know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to be very light with the pencil because it can chip away the glaze, and I don't want that. Now I'm just going to glaze inside of my drawing there. So it's really important that you use a brush, have yourself a brush that's going to help make your design work better. I'm not using a really small brush, but I'm not using a really big brush. So if I want something with more intricate lines, I could use a thicker brush, or a smaller brush, but I'm not interested in that for this. And again, that's where the pre-planning of this comes in. And it's really important that while I'm doing this, I keep this as flat as I can, because if I put too much, you can see there's some thicker areas of wax, and if I were to turn this, that wax would start running, and therefore obscuring my pattern here. Okay, so we just need one nice, fairly even coat of wax. Again, there's some thicker spots, some thicker spots, but that's okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this over to the sink and wash this out with really hot water so it gets really nice and clean, because I don't want any glazed residue left inside of there. Okay, so my wax is dry to the touch now. I'm actually sat overnight just because of timing, but again, just an hour or so would have been fine. I've got the yellow salt mixed up. So now I'm going to go ahead and just dip this one side in, shake off my excess, and now we can see where I put the wax. We can see a little bit of beading of the yellow salt, but for the most part, the yellow salt is just where there wasn't wax. So I have Cowan Amber that's going to be covered with yellow salt around the waxed areas that are just the Cowan Amber. So I can just go ahead and just lightly with a sponge wipe up this excess. And then once this yellow salt dries for about 20 minutes, I'm going to put some more wax on that and talk about that before I move on to the next stage. Okay, so now that the yellow salt is dry, I've made sure to wipe off all of the excess yellow salt. I've got this overlap here on the edge of the two glazes. I need to get rid of that. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and wax off this yellow salt so that as I do the other sides of this, it does not disrupt what's happening already. The wax is going to have trouble drying on top of other wax, so I'm trying my best not to recover areas. You can even see where it retracts a little bit. Okay, so I just want to make sure it's up to the edge and not going down the edge. As I'm picking this up, I have to be really careful that there's no wax on my hands, or else I'll get a wax fingerprint on one of my glazes, and I don't want that. Okay, so that looks good. Again, I just need to let this set and dry. I'll clean my brush really well, and then a few more moments, let this dry, and start talking about the next side.